After a week one that saw the Dogs winning 9 of 14 games outright, including huge double-digit upset wins by the Giants and Dolphins, will the Dogs still rule in week 7? We'll go over all the games, including tonight's AFC West matchup, as the Raiders try and pull off the upset against the hated Chiefs. And we'll preview all the other Week 7 matchups as OFN NFL Preview with Tony Mejia on PSN starts now. All right, thanks for tuning in to the Ourlads Football Radio Network as we preview Week 7 in the NFL with Tony Mejia, an independent sports columnist and exclusive handicapper at VegasInsider.com. So, Tony, I learned that the Dogs need to be taken seriously. What did you learn from Week 6?
Well, we already knew the Dogs need to be taken seriously because of the way the season has gone. I learned that another obvious thing, that the Packers aren't as good without Aaron Rodgers. I also learned that we still don't know what a catch is in this league. And yes, I also definitely learned the very hard way that I believe I called the Giants and Broncos a name your score situation. And that didn't go well for me.
Yeah, well, I think that when you take a look at those two games, the games that you see a lot, the double digits, the one where you go, yeah, there's just no chance, like the Miami game as well. I think when you look at those games and you at least do see that the teams that they lost to or they beat, actually there are issues going on there. I mean, I haven't all season. I still won't believe in Denver. They're a one-trick pony. It's all about their defense. Trevor Siemian, you never know what you're going to get from him because he's just not really that. He's a borderline starting quarterback in the NFL. And if he wasn't on a team with a great defense and, the ability to run the football a little bit, they wouldn't have any success. And then with Atlanta, look, we talked about it last week. There's something going on there now, and this is starting to, 1 week, okay, maybe a couple weeks, now starting to go on for 3 weeks. The whole Steve Sarkisian thing, it's the only part of that offense that's different, and that seems to be a problem right now in Atlanta.
Yeah, huge issue. I mean, to me, they looked like they just called it an afternoon at the break. 17-0. The Dolphins absolutely showing no signs of life. Maybe they assumed it was going to be an easy week, and you know what happens when you assume things. It was a gutless loss. I mean, you never want to make too much out of a loss, but I came away watching that in horror as wow, that's a really soft team. Yeah. As far as the Denver game goes, you can't get too far ahead of yourself, but when everything is in your favor, from the location of the game, alien territory for a team like the Giants, to all the injuries that they came in with, to show up the way that they did with, really not being in the game mentally until it was almost too late, and then you got to give credit to Janoris Jenkins for changing it.
Yeah, I mean, look, sure, with Denver, you look. I don't think there's any doubt with Denver. You're going, well, look, if the opposition was the New England Patriots and the Broncos were an underdog, that they would have won the game over. If the uniforms were New England, they would have won that game by 30. All that is your typical situation where you have one team that's probably sick of losing, sick of hearing how bad they are, especially in the New York market. And they get away from home, which is a good thing. And you get another team that's looking at the film and they're going, psychologically, they may not admit it, but deep down inside, they didn't get up for the game. They didn't.
No question. Underestimated. And then, based on what happened from the 1 p.m. block to the 7 p.m. block, once that game started going south, you knew it was headed that way, just based on what we had seen all afternoon. So, crazy Week 6.
And college football, by the way, Tony. And college football, too. Remember, they had 9.
College football definitely, that's true. But, for me, I couldn't solve it. It was a horrible week for me in my NFL Super Contest. And, got to string some 5 and 5s together to make up for it. But,
okay.
Look, the Giants, credit to them. Evan Ingram stepping up, and to me, it's still a 4-win football team tops. But they got one that they needed to get for pride's sake.
All right, let's get started with the game tonight. And the Chiefs are right about a 3-point favorite. That's about where we expected the line to be. Chiefs coming off a game in which, when I'm watching the game, and I'm sure I'm going, well, okay, Kelsey's probably not 100%, and there's some injury factors there. We get it, but we're also, first thing I'm thinking about is now that's the Andy Reid Kansas City Chief team or Philadelphia Eagles teams I've seen before. When you think, look how good they look, and everything's going great, and can Andy Reid win a Super Bowl and all that kind of stuff, this is what they do. And they have one of those games because his offenses are so predicated on so many players touching the ball, and he has so many different variations and formations and schemes that when everything's going right, it's a beautiful thing to see. And it's a great offense, and it's a dangerous offense, and it could be the best offense in football. But when something goes wrong and something's not working and something's out of sync, boy, can they look ugly. And that's exactly what happened last week. So the question is it one game? Is it a matchup issue with Pittsburgh? They play an Oakland team now that is just, I mean, what on earth? Somebody needs to explain to me what on earth Jack Del Rio is doing, going for it just about at midfield when he has a lead late in the game against the Chargers on 4th and 2. I mean, seriously. I mean, what is he even thinking of?
Oh, I mean, it was brutal. You almost knew when Tavecchio couldn't come up with that extra point that it was destined to end with San Diego pulling it out. From Kansas City standpoint, I didn't budge them from number one in the power ranking. For one, it is somewhat of a matchup thing against Pittsburgh. Very, very similar to how they lost in the playoffs in January. At home, low-scoring game, down 2 offensive linemen. So you're down 2 offensive linemen again tonight, and that turns Alex Smith into game manager mode. It just does. And from the standpoint of what he's looking at on the field, I think it was probably the right move because Pittsburgh wasn't really doing anything. They were monopolizing the ball with Le'Veon Bell nearly 200 yards, but the game was within reach. And I think that's all he's concerned about, especially at home. You figure you can pull it out. Then they didn't. First loss, but again, to me, the Chiefs are still number one in a league that you throw them all in a blender.
Oh yeah, they've earned it, no question. And it wasn't like, I mean, look, they came back, they almost won the game for crying out loud.
Right.
If it wasn't for Brown's miraculous touchdown. So it wasn't like the Steelers, we'll get to them in a minute, have really been turning it up offensively or anything like that, nor did they do it against the Chiefs that day. It was just like you said, same thing. They ran the ball. Bell ran all over them. But the Raiders aren't going to run the ball over the Chiefs. The Raiders haven't run the ball over anybody. Still trying to figure that out. And look, if they can't do it against the Chargers, who've been giving up a lot of yards on the ground, I don't know when the Raiders are going to do it. It seems like they're at least trying to go a little bit more with Richard, but they're also, I think, why are they wasting carries on Washington? Why? I mean, you got to get Lynch into the flow before you can worry about giving your third string running back touches. You don't have that type of an offense just yet. So it is interesting that the 2 coaches that went for it on 4th down, and it backfired last week with Del Rio and Andy Reid are both playing each other tonight. The Chiefs have beaten the Raiders 5 straight times by a 135-73 margin. So not only have they beaten the Raiders, but I believe 4 out of those 5 wins have been by more than 7 points. I think they'll bounce back off the win. I'll take the Chiefs. I mean, I can't take Oakland right now. Until the Raiders start looking like the team from last year, I can't touch them.
Yeah, Raiders will be without Marshall Newhouse at right tackle, which elevates Vidal Alexander, who has really struggled, second-year 7th-round pick out of LSU. Again, he's had his issues, has been pulled from games, but he's going to be out there as a right tackle. Chiefs have scored. Let me get this right because I did the research and wrote it. The take out Pittsburgh from the equation, who obviously again held them down this past week, held them down, the 18-16 loss at home in the playoffs last year. You remove them from the equation, they're a perfect 16-0 when scoring at least 19 points over the last year plus, and they've been amazing outside of Arrowhead, 8-0 within that span on the road.
Awesome. All right.
And within the division, everybody knows what they do. I think they've lost once in the division within, the last 2 years. So 2-3 years. So yeah, I mean, it's all there for the Chiefs to put their foot on the Raiders' throats.
Yep.
We'll see if desperation kicks Oakland into gear. They're going to use Navarro Bowman, who they just signed. So it seems that all hands are on deck. No Gary and Conley. So the secondary that does not have an interception yet could be victimized if Alex Smith chooses to do so.
Yeah, and this has been going on since after the week 1 loss. So this is not a 1-week thing, a 2-week thing, a Derek Carr thing. This is a team thing that's going on. There's a confidence problem. It's Amari Cooper, you name it. The Raiders are dealing with it. By the way, what's your gut tell you as far as what you saw from Travis Kelce? If you were, it's fantasy speaking. If you had Travis Kelce, would you start him this week?
I would, just because he's such a weapon, but he could be in decoy mode. We've talked about the Chiefs, and to me, I think you have to have Kelce and Hill out there just for everybody else's sake because of the attention that they draw.
Sure.
And then you can punish them with Kareem Hunt. And then I think the most injury impacted player on the Chiefs roster today is Albert Wilson, who's questionable, but everybody else is a go. So
okay,
you got to just trust the injury report. I think Kelce's good to go, and for fantasy purposes, you have him on your roster. He's got to be in your lineup.
All right. Next up on Sunday, actually, if you look at it, the 3 best games this week, and this doesn't happen very often that the primetime networks get lucky, but the 3 best games this week are all on primetime. Actually, I'm not going to put the Oakland Chief game into it, but I'll only say that I'm willing to even throw it into the mix as far as a top 5 or 6 game, just because of the fact there's a rivalry, and the Raiders have their back up against the wall. And it's a nice rivalry to watch for fans' sake, even outside of the AFC West. But the 2 best games clearly are the games on Sunday and Monday night, Atlanta, New England, and Washington, Philly. And, you do wonder, well, Atlanta's got the big lead. Are they looking ahead to New England? Is that even possible? But again, it was not a 1-week thing. This has been going on for several weeks. Matt Ryan with the late game interceptions, whether it's his fault or not, fact is, it's just there's something just not working right now for the Falcons. And I know New England is not New England from last year, though, and that's true. I think, though, the product of a 3.5 point line is, I think, because they probably think, well, wait a second, what are the Patriots doing struggling against the Jets? I mean, truly. I mean, I don't know why they're just a 3.5 point favorite the way the Falcons are playing. I mean, this is still the Patriots. I get they're 1-2 at home. I get they haven't covered at home this year. So maybe that plays into it. I don't know. Stephon Gilmore, does he play or not against Jones? Okay. But, I mean, how do I not like New England in this game? Tell me how I don't like New England in this game.
Well, I mean, simply it's Matt Ryan figuring some things out and taking advantage of a defense that has really sucked. So I mean that's where it is. As far as the line goes, the most you can go is New England -5. So the 3.5 isn't. It's not too glaring to me. I think it's a big statement game for both teams, and I think we could definitely be talking about Ryan throwing 4 touchdowns against that defense because. Let's face it, the Jets made plays. We'll talk about the Safarian Jenkins call, I'm sure. But, that was right there to be had for the Jets against the Patriots. It's ridiculous, but that's what we've seen. You can only go by what you've seen. So, why would you put the Patriots as more of than a 3.5, 4, or 5 point favorite over a Falcons team that we clearly know what they're capable of?
Yeah, I mean, I look at this. Anytime I look at a 3 point line, I look at it as more than likely in the NFL, it's a win. Okay, if it's 3, you should win, you should cover. And I just, the way Atlanta's playing, that's the problem that I'm having. The way they're playing, it's been a month now, with the bye week that they've done. And they even struggled against Chicago in the opening week. They haven't had really, I don't know. I mean, I don't even know if they've played a game this year where you go, that's Atlanta from last year. And remember
they played half like that, but no, not a full game.
Yeah. I remember last week we said, well, if they lose to Miami, we might have to have something about this Atlanta AFC East thing because they're playing the Jets next week. So that's 4 straight games against AFC East teams in a 5-week period. And they've already lost at home to Miami and Buffalo. So whether you want to go with the trend of Atlanta not being able to beat AFC East teams, who knows? But the Falcons are 2-0 on the road this year. So and the Patriots are 1-2 at home. So there's that. But I already told you who I like. I like the Patriots in that one against Atlanta.
I think the common denominator within those AFC East teams outside of New England is pretty good defenses. I mean, even without Sheldon, Jets have held it together. Adams has obviously been a strength of safety and coming over and really masking some issues. But then you have Miami, who's an excellent defense. If they get the back covered, the pressure up front speaks for itself. And obviously you got Buffalo. To me, I think this is a game where the Patriots are actually vulnerable because of they don't fit into that, and Ryan, if he finds a groove, can take them apart. Everybody else has.
Yeah, Patriots, of course, the only other NFC South team they played at home, they lost to in Carolina. See, I think this is a game that for New England, they lose the game. I don't think anybody's going to freak out. But if Atlanta loses this game, I really do think that, if they lose this game, I really do think that they're in big trouble. If they win this game, I think it is just going to be a tremendous. I don't care how they win it, and I know New England's not playing the way they are capable of, but if they win this game, psychologically, I think this is going to be so huge for them the rest of the season. But we've seen Super Bowl losing teams struggle before when you never would have thought it was going to happen, and the Falcons are playing right now like they're one of those teams that I could easily see this team missing the playoffs the way they've been playing, and that's why this game is so big for them.
I got to agree with you there. And wouldn't have thought that, but no question, Matt Ryan, not the reigning MVP that we saw form-wise last year.
All right, now comes
doubting himself.
And by the way, you know what I'd also like to see them do a little bit more of is and I know it's kind of hard, but I don't care if that's stretching them out at receiver, but I'd like to see if they just a few more touches, a few more plays to Tevin Coleman. He's such a game breaker. One of the game breakers they have. I know Freeman's a very good running back. I'd just like to see them get a little bit more touches there to Coleman. I know Sanu's supposed to come back for them, but I couldn't start Sanu if I even had him in a fantasy league. And as far as the Patriots, the whole running back rotation now, it seems like Dion Lewis now is becoming more of a focal point once again, not James White. I don't know, maybe that's because Dion Lewis has been healthier, but it looks like their top two running backs now are Gillespie and Lewis, at least for the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, and I think if you're going to start one and thinking you're having a conventional running back out there, it's got to be Gillespie, and he at least gets touches to try to keep a defense on it. Legitimate run play. So he'd be my one. But yeah, no question that we've seen a little bit of a change of the guard from what we expected with that running back number 2.
Yeah, I think Dion Lewis is one of those guys you definitely like to have on the bench as a sub running back in a fantasy league. And as far as Kevin Hogan, I know he was injured last week, and I know there's a possibility maybe he doesn't play this week. I have him on one of my 2 fantasy leagues, and I was like, hey, after like week 2, I was like, man, I'm starting this guy every week. And even though he didn't do anything last week, some of it was because of the injury. But if I know he's playing, he's starting. So that's how.
Yeah, I've become that with Amendola, which is interesting because you have all these options for Brady, but he finds a way to at least get those guys in position to make 1 or 2 big plays a game. Yeah. And that alone is worth a fantasy start.
Yeah, in my 2 teams, I've got Gronk and Cooks on one team, and on the other team I have Hogan. And it's like I don't even worry, even though I got 3 receivers. Yeah, because that's what happens every week. Yeah, sure, once in a while, like Hogan last week, you'll have a dud. But even though I have 3 guys, I don't care. I feel good every week. Okay. Monday night, Washington and Philadelphia. And boy, this becomes a huge game early in the season for the NFC East because the Cowboys, just with all the distractions they're going through, the way they're playing, this could be either Washington makes it an early 2-team race, or Philadelphia is the clear cream of the crop in the NFC East by winning this game. If they can do it, beat the Redskins for the second time this year. They beat them to end a 5-game series losing streak in week 1, beat them by 13. That was the game that Fletcher Cox ran in that fumble to seal the game late in the fourth quarter. What a difference Fletcher Cox makes to that Philadelphia Eagle defense when he came back against Carolina last week. Boy, Cam Newton just had a lot of problems staying in that pocket. It caused him to be erratic, and that's what you got to do against Cam. But also, Carson Wentz is starting to get more and more confident every week. That running game that we talked about, that's looked so much better since Darren Sproles has been injured. That's given them a lot of balance. They get Lane Johnson back, it looks like. That's great. Not that it seemed like they missed them. For Washington, they're kind of both teams actually have got some concerns on defense as far as injuries. Norman and Breeland in the secondary. Allen's out for the year. For the Eagles, you got Hicks, Darby, Watkins, Bradham, Graham. A lot of key guys that are banged up for both teams on defense. Hopkins is also out, so the Redskins will have a new kicker. He's out for the year. But the Eagles have won 4 straight. They're only lost by 7 at Kansas City. I'm just going to have a hard time not taking the Eagles the way they're playing right now.
Yeah, Bradham was exceptional on Thursday night. I bookended it. I had a 2-0 Thursday with side and total, picking Philly straight up, and then a Monday night hit, and Sunday was atrocious. But obviously the Fletcher Cox play where he forced a lineman right into Cam Newton, forced that key interception, changed that game. Bradham was all over the field, like I said. You get a feeling that you have a bend but don't break defense. Basically, you're not going to be able to cover. That should worry you against Cousins because he's been playing extremely well on that end. But the Washington defense not healthy and completely different without Josh Norman, who I don't believe is coming back.
Yeah, that's the one thing that I've been a little bit I've been surprised about is that Wentz hasn't used his receivers enough. But Aguilar, that's been the big saving grace for them because Aguilar, boy, he had bust written all over him until this season.
He's catching the ball.
Yeah, he's right. Maybe he spent a lot of time in the offseason practicing because he is catching the ball this season, and that is going off, and that's huge because, again, Torrey Smith's not really – and I'm really surprised at Alshon Jeffrey. Now, I don't know if he's 100%, if he's going to be the same player, but he's just such a really dynamic receiver that I'm just surprised that maybe we'll start seeing more of that as the season goes on and Wentz gets comfortable with them. But because that could really make them dangerous if he could start taking advantage of someone like Jeffrey.
Yeah, no question. He's your legit number one. And for them to really maximize their potential, needs to play like it. But Ertz has become obviously the security blanket and really come into his own. I mean, if you're thinking tight ends right now, he's top 5 for sure. Aguilar's making plays that the ball hit his hands last year, and he'd either drop it or it would fall safely into a defensive back's hand off of his caroms. And this year, he's applied stickum. He made some really nice catches the other day. On Wentz is so fun to watch him because I'm not an Eagles fan, so I can kind of deal with the ups and downs. But he's so sharp at times, and then there are other stretches where balls sail on him. So he's an adventure at all times. But if he continues on this on this path, he's going to be a top 10 quarterback, undisputed, for the next decade.
Yeah, I actually it's interesting because my 2 quarterbacks in my one league, I have Wentz and Stafford, and I was just about to turn everything over to Wentz, and the bye week came, and now I'm saying, you know what? I think maybe this is the time I'll do it. If he has another good week this week and plays well, I might just go ahead and do that. Even though Stafford came up with big numbers last week, that was in a blowout effort, so you can't rely on that all the time. But yeah, I think Carson Wentz is no doubt a legitimate starting quarterback. You have to put him in the starting lineup in fantasy. And I'm also kind of surprised that for the Redskins part, that Cousins hasn't been able to develop anything yet with Terrell Pryor. He is getting Doxson involved a little bit, so maybe that'll help them. But yeah, I'm surprised that because that's really where I think if they're going to be that dangerous, where I know they can be offensively, they got to get the receivers going.
Yeah, this will be the game where he'll need to get it done, and conversely, it's going to be Wentz attacking, hopefully getting enough protection, and that should improve with Lane Johnson back. But with Breeland banged up, Norman out, Everett is questionable with a hammy. It appears that the Washington secondary will be vulnerable. So could see another edition of the Carson Wentz show.
All right,
this Monday night.
Let's take a look at a couple of division matchups. First of all, in the AFC, Cincinnati is taking on Pittsburgh, and the Bengals off of their bye, getting ready for their hated rival. And the Bengals, we noted last week or a couple weeks ago, they're starting to play better. They've won 2 out of their last 3. They've covered their last 3. Their only loss in that stretch, the Green Bay overtime game that they let slip away. So after a really rough start to the season, the Bengals are looking more like the team from a couple years ago than they are from the team from last year or the first couple of games of the season. For Pittsburgh, look, the defense is winning games for Pittsburgh, and it's Brown and it's Bell, and it's Bell and it's Brown and it's the defense, and that's what you're getting every week, and that's why they're not always winning these games easily. And you get this rivalry situation, and Pittsburgh had a really tough game last week against the Chiefs, and all the distractions and everything's all the sky's falling after the Jacksonville loss, and then they come back and win. They've beaten the Bengals 4 straight, including the 2016 wild card game. They've beaten the Bengals actually 7 of 8, so they do have the Bengals number. But I'll tell you, you know what? If I'm looking for a dog this week, a few dogs straight up, I think the Bengals are one of them.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think they've rediscovered their identity since getting Roethlisberger back. But, I mean, Roethlisberger always carves up the Bengals. I mean, he went to Miami of Ohio, which is in Oxford, essentially right outside Cincinnati. So maybe those games mean a little bit more to him. But, you know, the point is that he's due for a breakout. He was a little cautious, as you should be, with Marcus Peters on the other side last week and riding the running game. And we'll see. I think the key will be whether Bell can have similar success against a Bengals defense that, you know, knows what's coming and, you know, has had varying levels of success in stopping the run. If they make Roethlisberger a passer, he could make some mistakes. You know, we could be talking about him needing to retire if the interception had been the pass he threw for a touchdown had been intercepted.
Yeah, right.
Because he was right there to be had, and
yeah,
you know,
that's right.
To show you a fraction of a second changes perception.
Yeah, and Foster and Gilbert have been banged up all season. Still don't know if they're going to play this week. And the Bengals do have a couple of corners that are banged up in Kirkpatrick and Jones, and you don't want those guys banged up when you're taking on Antonio Brown. So, but yeah, I think I think I like the way the Bengals have been playing. Still don't know yet if they're a playoff team. I think we'll find out more about that on Sunday against Pittsburgh. So if Pittsburgh wins this game, though, you would think that things are looking pretty good for them to wrap up the AFC North after Week 7. All right, Arizona and the Rams in the NFC West. Boy, how one player, one move, can change a season potentially for a team. The Adrian Peterson move, because now you look at this Arizona team and you go, well, wait a second. I mean, we knew the defense was playing okay. It was the offense. The offensive line had some injury issues. And you couple that with John Brown being out and the running game having nothing with David Johnson being out, and you're like, okay, well, that it's ugly. They're just not doing it well. At least they've squeaked out a couple of wins and they're kind of hanging in there. And then boom, Adrian Peterson, and you go, wait a second. Now things are looking better. John Brown's back. Fitzgerald, Peterson, Palmer seems to be playing better. The defense is okay. I'm starting to think now that this Arizona team is looking like the sleeper team that we thought they could be when the season began. And you know what? Wouldn't be the worst idea in the world, because there's such a big number to win the Super Bowl, to say, hey, you know, throw a couple bucks in Arizona at 100-1 to win the Super Bowl. You only have to put a couple of bucks on them. I mean, come on. I mean, that's a movie ticket. So actually, it's probably half a movie. That thing of popcorn. Anyway, interesting in this series against the Rams. The road team has won 5 straight.
We're going to see. I mean, look, you didn't expect Peterson to even play last week. I expected him to get about 8 to 10 carries, just to be like, you know, let's get him back. Let's get him into the equation. Instead, he changes the game.
Yeah.
How much is that? Him? And I preach to the choir about his straight ahead run style and how that's perfect for that system, and that he's still got plenty left. And you know, the New Orleans mishap was more of a fit thing than anything else. But Tampa Bay, I mean, I don't know that you can trust any results against them.
Yeah.
Because, you know, I put them right in there with the Falcons as teams that looked completely gutless on Sunday. And yeah, sure, they made the comeback behind Fitzpatrick, but it's not that they were giving up; it's that they're being gashed. And Quan Alexander and Levante Davis being banged up has really decimated that defense. But nobody's stepping up. Dirk Cutter, I'm going to hop in there with you riding shotgun and in my displeasure for what I've seen from him.
Uh-huh.
I'll pump the brakes on the Cardinal type.
Yeah, again, I love how can you not love what the Rams have done? 4-2, 1-game lead on Arizona, nice bounce back from the Seattle loss, showed a lot, go on the road, across the country, all of that, great sign. Keep in mind they've lost 2 straight at home, 0-2 straight up, and the only win they had was that Colt game to open the season with Scott Tolzien at quarterback. So I actually think Arizona. You know what? I'm going to ride Arizona for at least another week and see if they've got something there. They have a bye after this, so it'd be perfect timing for them to go into the bye at 4-3, tighten the ship with the Rams in the NFC West, and scare Seattle a little bit. Also, outside division play, we have New Orleans and Green Bay, and the Saints are starting to now become the team I thought they would be when the season began after getting off to a terrible start at 0-2. I'm not even worried about the way the defense let Detroit come back last week, because up until the second half, there were 2 games and a half where the Saints defense was looking a lot better than last season, or even the first 2 weeks of the season. So I'm willing to forgive that, especially with Green Bay losing Rodgers. And they're all just for Packers. It's not just the quarterback. I mean, the secondary's banged up, the offensive line's banged up.
Yeah.
And I just don't. Tell you the truth, I didn't like what I saw out of Hundley. Now I'm willing to give him a week. All right, Saints aren't the best defense in the world. Show me something. But what I've seen from even rookie quarterbacks this year, I want to see Hundley play well on Sunday, because if he doesn't, Packers are in for a load of hurt this season, and they're not going anywhere.
Well, I mean, Marshawn Lattimore's been a game changer for the Saints, for that secondary. Probably going to be on the short list for defensive rookie of the year, the corner. So it'll be interesting to see how Green Bay receivers help Hundley Brett Hundley against him. And yeah, I think you're being a little hard on Hundley, because that's the top 10 defense. He was basically thrown out there again.
Sure.
And he hasn't. He's the preseason stud. He goes out there and beats up on backup defenses and looks great doing it for 3 quarters, because Rodgers takes his one drive and then it's Hundley time, and that's what we've seen from him. And now the lights go on, because I don't think we're going to see Aaron Rodgers again this season. And I want to see him take that step forward. We'll see how he fares with a conventional week of practice against a defense that much improved. Not the Saints defense that we've seen in recent years, but certainly a defense you can score points against. So big week for Hundley.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a little bit concerned with giving 4-5 on the road, being Saints, and even though it's a backup quarterback and all that. So I'm a little bit concerned with that. But in general, I mean, I don't know how you don't. If you're taking the game, I don't know how you don't go with Breeze over Hundley. So. All right. And by the way, if you've got Packers on your fantasy team, I think you're unloading all of them. You might want to say, all right, for a player or two. I mean, Aaron Jones, of course, I'm keeping, and I'm even starting. I'm still going to start him this week. But Randall Cobb, gone. And of course, you got Jordy Nelson. He sticks around. And probably you even start him this week, but you'd have to kind of, that's it. You get 1 week.
Well, look, to me, Cobb is going to be the key, because Cobb is such a focal point for Aaron Rodgers, in that let me help you, let me as a former quarterback and understanding how that works, let me get open and get you some easy throws. He's got to do the same thing for Hundley. The chemistry, obviously, between Rodgers and Cobb speaks for itself. So, I mean, that's not going to be there overnight, but I think he's your X factor. And then season's not over for them yet, but you got to get the ball rolling. They don't necessarily even have to win this week. This is an odds maker special, though. Understand that the whole country saw Aaron Rodgers go down. Not a lot of people know about Brett Hundley, so you hype up that point spread and get that Saints money in there, and then the Packers probably cover.
Yeah, I mean, look, and we don't know because we don't know. We kind of put Hundley in the same category as rookies because and he's in a better situation because he's not a rookie. You don't know, like you said, with Minnesota's defense compared to the Saints, and they're at home, and now everybody is kind of giving up on the Packers. Didn't we just talk about that with the Giants last week? So you don't know, and if Hundley comes out and plays well. And better than expected, and does play like the guy that played in the preseason, and like he did at UCLA, then hey, wait a second. All right, maybe we shouldn't be giving up on the Packers so soon. Not to win a Super Bowl, but to win a few games.
Exactly. Yeah, I look, and I would think that there are few defenses with Smith in the back and solid corners and Griffin causing havoc up front and my offensive line being garbage that I'd want to face being Hundley coming off the bench cold. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, and that's why the other injuries are important. Not having Bakhtiari or Balaga, who knows? Nobody knows if they're going to be out there. And also the DBs, as we talked about, going against Drew Brees, if your DBs are going to be out. We've seen the Packers get toasted all season with that secondary dating back for the last couple of seasons. So,
sure, definitely an intriguing game and a telling one as far as the NFC is concerned, because the NFC is up for grabs.
All right, Baltimore, Minnesota.
I was watching. I guess it's Inside the NFL where Phil Simms is on. He named 9 teams. They went through the entire NFC. 9 teams that he would buy as this team makes it to the Super Bowl. You buy or no? I don't know if you caught that segment. And I mean, 9's excessive considering 6 make the playoffs. But I mean, we could probably go through roughly half the NFC and say, okay, I'll buy them.
To actually get to the Super Bowl.
From
the NFC.
Get to the Super Bowl.
I don't know if I could do. I mean, I'm sure you probably said a few that I wouldn't say. I mean, I would only say one team out of the NFC East. I would say.
I think he said 4 teams, three teams out of the.
I'm sure he did. Yeah.
I actually no, because they all said no one Dallas. So I'll take that back.
Oh, they did say no one Dallas.
He bought Philly, Washington. He bought Carolina. I think he was probably one of the few people that bought Tampa Bay, and then
bought Tampa Bay. Well, there you go. I mean, come on. I mean, Tampa Bay.
No, trust me, it was excessive, but it just goes to show you that this is a wide open conference.
And you know what? Because I still can't trust Kansas City completely, and the fact that the Patriots are playing like the Patriots, it's really a wide open period in the league, and that's something we did not expect when the season began. And some of it is because you just don't know from week to week on certain teams like Baltimore. Even though it's starting now, the picture seems to be more like that until Macklin may be back this week, and that's very important. They have to figure out a way to get Flacco going because he just hasn't played well. I think the Woodhead injury has been a big loss to him. The fact he doesn't have a tight end either, that's what he wants to do. He wants to throw to his running backs and tight ends, and he's got the tight end injuries and the Woodhead injury, and I think it's killing him, and of course the Yonda injury. So I think that's all killing him. But for Minnesota, and of course the Brandon Williams injury is big too because they're getting gashed on the ground. So he's out again. Now, I don't know what, look, McKinnon's been doing a great job the last couple of weeks for Cook. We'll see how long that lasts. Diggs has been banged up, but Case Keenum, see, this is one of those games where you just don't know what you're going to get from Case Keenum. And Baltimore has got the capability on defense to make some game-changing plays. So, sure, Minnesota's the better team, the favorite by 5-6 points. They deserve to be. I would probably take Minnesota in this game, but I just don't know what to expect from Baltimore. I just don't.
Yeah, I mean, I was not on high on the Ravens going into the season, and obviously it's very easy for me to punt on them. You're absolutely right about it just not being on Flacco. He hasn't forgotten how to play the quarterback position. Maybe there's been some physical regression, but not to the point where he should be an abomination like that offense has often looked. You don't get healthy against the Vikings defense, so that's probably one of the games that I'll include in my 5 for this week. Just riding the Vikings and trusting that defense and hoping the good Case Keenum.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah,
maybe Teddy Bridgewater showing up to light a little fire on your own, even further.
Yeah, because the Ravens have only won 1 out of the last 4 games, and that was beating Oakland, which is really no big prize at this point in time. So, by the way, Baltimore at home next Thursday night against the Dolphins. So that could be a very That could be one of those games where you hope that the World Series is going on. Because I'm not sure anybody outside of Baltimore or Miami wants to look at that game. That'll be one ugly football game, the way those two offenses are playing, as we segue to the Dolphins and the Jets. And boy, you look up and see the Dolphins at 3-2 after the season they've had, and you go, how on earth is this team 3-2? But they got the win. They stole the win against Atlanta. Now, is that the beginning of their season? Will they ride that? Get revenge after the Jets, after beating them, after losing to them week 1? Ajayi was held to 16 yards. Was that a product of the hurricane and the London trip? But interesting that both teams have swept the season series the last 2 years. So the Jets are looking to make it 3 straight years. They've actually beaten the Dolphins 5 out of 8. They've covered 6 out of 8. So they've had the Dolphins number for the most part over the last few years, except the 1 year they got swept. And they've actually covered 4 straight games. Again, maybe they beat the Patriots, maybe they don't. But, one of the worst calls in the history of football prevented them from having a realistic chance against the Patriots. With the Dolphins, though, I just don't see it. I mean, look, they got to get Ajayi going. We talked about that last week, and they did. They got Ajayi going. So, okay, if Ajayi has a good game, and I don't see any reason why he shouldn't, unless Pouncey's out, but he has a good game, then Dolphins would be in good shape. But I don't know what to expect from the Jets, to tell you the truth, coming off that loss. I think they've definitely been more consistent than the Dolphins this season.
I mean, I would definitely agree. And you hit it on the head as to what the key X factor is in this matchup. It's Mike Pouncey, who right now doesn't look like he's going to play, but we'll see. Obviously the main cog of that offensive line, which isn't great to begin with, but he's, I would say, top 2, top 3 center. And it's going to be a drastic fall, if he's not able to participate. And, they won a game last week without Parker. So, Cutler can get it done if he gets some protection and gets some running from Ajayi. I think it's going to be against the Jets defense that is known for stopping the run. It's going to be essential that Pouncey plays, because if he's not, I won't touch the game just because I can't get behind the Jets. But I would think that the Dolphins would have a hard time coming through there without Pouncey.
All right, and by the way, it looks like Powell probably doesn't play again. I doubt. There's no reason to rush him back. We'll see. But I think Forte is definitely. I picked him up last week on my fantasy team because of what we saw. I know.
He was fresh.
Yeah, I know he's going to start over McGuire. I knew that was going to happen. That's what they do. That's why McCown's starting. So of course they're going to start Forte. So yeah, I think Forte is probably not a. I think if you're looking for a running back to start, I think you should trust Forte to have a pretty decent game. But yeah, I think Ajayi will play well. I think he'll look a lot more like the Ajayi from last week than the first Jet Dolphin game. All right.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're going to see. To me, it's all on that offensive line. If Pouncey's not on it, get me as far away from that game as possible. Point me towards the under.
And those are a lot of times. Those are always crazy games. You never know what's going to happen in Jet Dolphin games. All right, Tampa Bay and Buffalo, and boy, there's that Tampa Bay team with Dirk Cutter, and things just not looking good for most of the season, especially on the road. They've dropped 4 straight covers for a reason, because they keep letting everybody down every week. Winston's coming off the shoulder injury, so you really don't know how healthy he's going to be. Buffalo's coming off the bye. They've had a great start to the season at 3-2, winning some games nobody thought that they would win. This is only the second time they're favored all season, by the way. That first time was week 1 when they beat the Jets. But Matthews is out, looks like again. Clay's, of course, out. So will Zay Jones, with a week off to prepare, will Zay Jones and Taylor be able to get on the same page? Because they really need to start figuring out a way to open up a little bit more of that passing game, or else they're a one-trick pony. But, hey, the way Adrian Peterson looked last week, why can't LaShawn McCoy rush for 200 yards?
Yeah, I mean, there's no question. And then you can also turn, some of those Fitzpatrick 50-50 balls, if he's out there, into points if you're an elite defense like Buffalo. Jameis is a true game time decision, or are they leaning towards him going?
No, right now it's up in the air. I mean, he at practice today, the word wasn't very good about what he was limited
Right.
to. So yeah, and it's Thursday. You know what it is on Thursday for practice. That's not a good sign.
Yeah, and I don't think you can put him out there limited based on how your season has gone so far, how poorly you protected. So yeah, this could be a situation where if the Bills come, don't play a second half like the Falcons did coming off of their bye week, this could be a situation where the Bills control a game and finish one off with their defense and their staple, that ground game.
Ryan Fitzpatrick going back to Buffalo, possibly it looking like. So very
He's thrown
familiar.
a lot of pick sixes there.
Yeah, he is. He has. And look, Ryan Fitzpatrick compared to a lot of other backups in this league is a good one. But you don't want him starting
No
too
question
long.
about
But we'll see. I mean, I don't know how you wouldn't. I mean, look, I think Buffalo's the clear choice though if Fitzpatrick's playing the way that they've played. But then again, they have overachieved so far. So we'll find out if that bye week coming off that loss in Cincinnati will change their momentum. All right. By the way, Tampa Bay, if they can get a win this week, it'll be big because next week they host Carolina, and that could change their season. So they really need to make sure that they enter that Carolina game at 500. Denver and the Chargers out on the West Coast, and boy, who would have thought that the Chargers could be a 1-point favorite in this game? Not me. Denver 7-1 last 8 versus the Chargers, beat them by 3 week 1. We remember that comeback and the Chargers missing the field goal at the end of the game, and then got the Chargers reeling the 4 straight losses. And now they've won their last 2, even though they were both on the road, so maybe that's not a surprise. But they're back home where they're 0-3 straight up and against the spread this year. And by the way,
quotation marks are at home.
Yeah, quotation marks at home. And they're at New England next week. So if the Chargers have a real shot, because they're only a game and a half behind Denver, so if they have a real shot for the wild card, because they're not catching the Chiefs, then this is one of those games you got to win, especially you don't want to drop 2 straight to a team you're trying to chase for a wild card. Denver 1-2 in their last 3. But by the way, keep this in mind. I'm not sure if people realize this. This is only the second road game all season for Denver. The only game they went on the road to, they didn't look very good in losing at Buffalo.
Yeah, I mean, I guess Simeon is probable with that shoulder issue, but we've seen enough to know that he's not entirely trustworthy. The Chargers have already stared down rock bottom in the end of their season, as far as I'm concerned. You lose games because of your kicker to start the season, then you get humiliated at home, which is not home, and Eagles fans make you a national laughingstock, and so now you kind of playing with house money. You go on the road, win 2 straight, and that I think is what makes them dangerous. You come in here, it's an opponent that a defense that you're familiar with. If you're Phillip Rivers, you have enough options to try to keep the ball away from Talib and do some damage and probably try to poach a game like you did against the Raiders, one where they were up, I think, 2 minutes and 28 seconds, something like that in that game until
sure. Yeah.
that get that late field goal. So
yeah.
If there's anybody that can pull out one of those games, it's probably him. I'll tell you what, though, this is how little I trust Rivers against that Broncos defense. I'm probably leaning towards Brett Hundley, who I picked off the waiver wire to start ahead of him.
You see, I have no choice because the week before I had Aaron Rodgers on my other fantasy team. The week before going into last week, I had no backup, and I started to look, and I go, I got to pick up a backup, and I picked up Rivers, and now I need Rivers, so Rivers has to start for me with Rodgers out for the year. So I think that confidence of winning, and sometimes you can't lose sight. This is, I think, important when you're forecasting teams in the beginning of the season. Try not to get too discouraged, too up, too down, to mask what you thought originally after just a few weeks, few good weeks, few bad weeks. That's kind of what I'm thinking about the Chargers. They've had so many bad things go on. I got to kind of take an outward look and say, you know what? Maybe those wins will get them going, because I did think that they have enough talent to be a sleeper team, and we've always said that with Rivers. So maybe now that they've got a couple of wins under their belt, maybe they could kind of get going here, and I'll give them the benefit of the doubt at least for 1 week, even though I hate doing it, because especially I just hate taking them at home, especially this year. I just hate it.
Yeah, it's certainly a trap line. My numbers would have Denver as a 2.5, 3-point favorite.
Yeah, sure.
On the road, especially since it isn't really a true road game. But instead, you got the Chargers as a home chalk. That's definitely eyebrow raising.
And Sanders is out, so they we'll see how that affects. That'll make things easier for the Chargers. They've got one good corner. They now have to worry about anybody else. They can put they can make sure that as far as the passing game, especially with Simeon, which you don't know, maybe that shouldn't be what should beat you. Denver's going to want to run the football. And if you can stop
if you go back to our early shows this season, I had high hopes for the Chargers based on just looking at their roster from a talent standpoint.
Yes.
Really lost a lot of steam when they lost Barrett, because I thought that would hamper them. It would have been a real nice strength to have him and Hayward on the corners, and now you only have one of them. So it's a situation where they're going to try to make the best of what they have. Is that enough to beat a Denver team that's possibly reeling? I think it is.
Well, you know who's actually
certainly if you're a contrarian based on just looking at the lines and seeing, okay, this doesn't look right to me, you're all over LA here.
You know who actually has played well for them since Verrett's been down is that Trevor Williams. So so and that's
better than expected. Definitely.
Yeah, that's been helpful. So because that's kind of their weakness back there in the secondary with those big boys Ingram and Post up front, and they've got some decent linebacker depth. So yeah, this is it. This is the season for the Chargers at New England next week, and then Denver Monday Night Football at Kansas City. So we'll see if Denver wins this game. That could be even bigger next Monday night. Jacksonville at Indianapolis, and here we go again. This has been a theme with the Jags all season. They're a favorite. So they're a 3-point favorite. Yes, they're a road favorite. So we go back to the 2011 situation, which was the last time they covered a road game as a favorite. But I guess you could look at it and go, yeah, but that was the Colts. So maybe they'll bookend being favorites on the road with the Colts, every 6 years. But I can't, I'm look, I really like the way Brissett's been playing, all things considered. I think he could definitely be a starter in this league. We've talked about that. And I think that based on the fact that the Jags just can't, I don't know what it is. I mean, now they're better on the road. They're terrible at home. So you do give them a shot on the road. But I mean, look, the way the Jags have played on the road, the way the Jags have played as a favorite compared to the way the Colts also have played at home. I mean, the Colts are 2-1 at home. They've covered all 3 at home. I'm thinking, maybe if I go with this game, I'm not even sure I would, but if I would, I'm kind of thinking maybe I go with the Colts.
Yeah, we'll see how Jacoby Brissett reacts to now knowing that this is probably going to be his show the rest of the season. I don't think we see Andrew Luck. Maybe he's already known that, but officially with Luck being put on the shelf because of the shoulder soreness, I think that increases the likelihood we won't see him to 2018 at the earliest. And so yeah, maybe he settles down, but maybe that gives him more rope to hang himself with, and he throws more miscues and becomes a little more careless. Because I've liked what I've seen. I think he is a top 32 quarterback based on what he's shown this season, which is saying a lot in the current NFL. And yeah, I would, to me, this would be a pick 'em. So
yeah,
if you're going to play the Jaguars, do the money line. Don't lay points on the road unnecessarily.
Yeah, I agreed, especially with this situation. You could easily see them winning like 17-16. But look, the Jags, even though they've covered 4 straight in this series, the home team has won 5 straight in this series. Next up, Carolina and Chicago. And this is one of those lines where you take a look at it and you go, come on. I mean, Carolina's got to win this game. All right, they didn't beat the Eagles, but the Eagles are playing well. It was a good game. Carolina, but I will say this. Somebody's got to talk to David Shula and tell him Jonathan Stewart's done. Okay? This is not the Jonathan Stewart from a couple of years ago. You cannot keep handing the ball off to Jonathan Stewart and getting negative yardage. The guy has, he's rushed for less yards than carries in the last 2 weeks combined. That is terrible. You can't. I mean, when you've got two game-breaking kids in that you can put back there in Samuel and McCaffrey, stop wasting your time running the ball with Jonathan Stewart. Now they're supposed to get Khalil back, so all right, you want to hand off the ball to Jonathan Stewart a few times with Khalil back, see if there's a big difference there. Fine, but I wouldn't waste too much time there. But then you got the Luke Kuechly situation, and here we go again with his concussion. So that is a bad sign, no question. Panthers are 3-0 straight up and against the spread on the road this year, so keep that in mind. But the Bears are 3-0 against the spread at home this year, which we've talked about, losing to the Vikings by 3, losing to the Falcons by 6, and beating the Steelers.
Yeah, I mean, largely quote unquote elite teams. They've stood right there and thrown punches with. Game 3 for Trubisky. So, a lot to like. This is a tough defense, but if Kuechly's not out there, which I don't anticipate he will be, it gets a little lighter. So, yeah, I mean, certainly, you look at this matchup and your brain wants to say, all right, well, Carolina gets this one, especially with additional time to prepare and heal up. But the Bears have proven now that despite their lack of options at wide receiver, the running game and the ingenuity that they've put on display, utilizing Tariq Cohen, can create some issues.
Yeah, I mean, you would believe Kuechly probably you would think is worth a couple of points. I mean, because
yes, absolutely.
Yeah, you would think that even last week, it's not like Trubisky lit it up. It was all running game. That's it. And you would think if Carolina could stop the running game in Chicago, that they're going to need to force maybe some Cam Newton turnovers and such. But unless Carolina does a complete, 180, 360, whatever you want to say, and all of a sudden he reverts back to what he did the first few weeks of the season, which I don't think will happen. I think Carolina's the play here. Yeah, with Cam, I think he should be fine. So because of that, I don't think Trubisky will catch up with him.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're out of the Cam danger zone.
Yeah,
with
I would think
worrying
so.
about his shoulder and him having his own mental doubts, which was causing some of those inaccuracy issues. But yeah, and absolutely, Trubisky hasn't been great. All you can do is have a little more diversity in what you can run offensively, is his ability to move the pocket and whatnot, his mobility. Look, it'll be an interesting game. I think if it's close, Cam probably rescues it late. If there are miscues, the Bears could run away with it, and that's the way they win this game.
All right, in the last 3 games, you have Seattle, the Giants, Dallas, San Francisco, Tennessee at Cleveland. With Seattle, I tell you what, I actually like the Giants in this game. I don't know if they win the game. Maybe a game like the Bengals. I might be considering for the money line at 2-1. I like the Giants as a home dog. They've played well in that spot the last few years. And of course, they played well as a dog last week. But the other thing too is I just don't like the way Seattle's played it on the road this year. I mean, a game that the only game they won was the Ram game, which they should have lost. They still have offensive line issues. I still have no idea what to expect there. The Giants actually still have a defense. So I would take 6 points in this spot and maybe even throw something on the money line. I don't think it's far-fetched to think the Giants may be able to, because I know they got the injuries all at one spot. So on paper, they're not as bad as 1-5.
No, definitely not. I think a lot of people, a lot of sharp bettors were on that. I mean, because they were hammering the Giants despite the results over the first couple of weeks until the major injuries hit with Odell and whatnot. Huge issue for Seattle. An already bad offensive line loses probably its best member in Luke Joeckel for at least a month with a knee. So they've got to figure that out on the road. We'll see if Weston Richburg gets back from his concussion as far as the Giants up front. They do get Sterling Shepard back from an ankle injury, and DRC, Dominic Rodgers-Cromartie, will be back from his suspension. So, look, Russell Wilson has to pull this one out, obviously, especially coming off a bye, but not far-fetched, especially with what they did to my wallet on Sunday. That I pick against the Giants' eyes closed. Evan Ingram, I picked him up. He's going to be a focal point going forward, obviously.
Yeah, he was actually my in my tight end league. In one of the two, I have a tight end league, and I actually drafted him, and I've been kind of waiting for this.
Him a lot.
Yeah, so glad. Actually, it does benefit him to not have these receivers in there like we saw it last week. But hey, remember the other thing we talked about when they didn't win in Tennessee a few weeks ago, Seattle when they have to go cross country and play in the East time zone, they haven't done very well. So keep that in mind too. I forgot to even look up that trend.
Based on what's going on in the division, this is a must-win, though, and especially try to get some confidence from an inexperienced group up front. You beat the Giants and that esteemed the front four on the road.
Mm-hmm.
You can progress with a little more confidence that you can get through this Jokel injury to where he's back, probably mid-November.
And Dallas, boy, this whole Ezekiel Elliott, it was making me sick a month ago, and now it's really making me sick. Not necessarily for fantasy reasons, just the whole thing. And I know it's a distraction. It's been a distraction for this team all season. They're not playing well. They've lost 2 straight, 3 out of 4. Throw in the fact that they haven't had, their best defender healthy in Lee, who may not even play again this week with his hamstring injury. Those are very tricky things. They could say he's going to play, he'll warm up, and then he won't play. So you just don't know. Cowboys are a 6-point favorite at San Francisco, but look, how do I not like San Francisco? I know they haven't been out pulling out the wins when I've taken them on the money line in a couple of these games recently, but they've been covering and they've sure made it close. 13 total points they have lost in their last 5 games. 13, and that includes 2 overtime games. And this is a 6-point spread, and they've covered and they've lost 5 games by a total of 13 points. You know what? One of these weeks, it's all going to gel. Why not this week? Why not?
Oh, hey, look, it's C.J. Beathard, and so he'll get the call. Did he show some nice things against Washington? Sure. Can we see it a second week in a row with the defense with some time to prepare?
Yeah,
we'll see. It depends on if Sean Lee plays. But, clearly, also an issue to monitor in this game is how divisive this whole Jerry Jones and you guys must stand issue ends up being, especially probably in the most liberal city that you can have in the league, is San Francisco.
That's true.
Very interesting.
Yeah,
the backdrops in this game.
All right. But, yeah, I mean, I to tell you the truth, if I'm thinking of Giants or Bengals or Niners on the money line, I might put the Niners on the top, to tell you the truth.
What'd you think of Beathard?
Hey, I thought he played fantastic for a rookie, especially with the team he has and the fact that I thought that it would probably take him a couple of years. I don't know. I don't think he has a ceiling. I mean, a big ceiling. But then again, I don't think Dak Prescott has a big ceiling. I think, but I think Beathard maybe could be a guy like Prescott that's drafted in the middle rounds. That's a smart kid that could game manage well, and he's got a very good coach in Shanahan to work under. So I kind of think that could work. Will that prevent the Niners from drafting like somebody in the first round at quarterback? I don't think so. It shouldn't.
He's Simeon-esque to me. Similar, same conference. Similar feature with his brain and a little bit. Hopefully for his sake, he's more consistent than Simeon. But Simeon has had some really nice games in this league. That would be my comparison.
And Niners, by the way, got to go all the way back east again next week at Philadelphia. Dallas, meanwhile, has the big rivalry game next week at the Redskins. Finally.
Oh.
Yeah, right. So, boy, if
makes
Dallas,
this a must-win, obviously.
Yeah,
with a ton of baggage. That's one to watch. If they drop this one, the whole season could implode.
And then Tennessee, Cleveland. Nobody's going to watch this game outside of Tennessee. It looks like, I guess, Kaiser gets the start again. Even though I'd start Kessler. I mean, I would. I mean, I don't think Kessler was terrible when he played last year, but I'm sure they'll probably go to Kaiser. Anyway,
yeah, it's looking that way.
Yeah, the Browns are not only 0-6, but they can hardly even cover. It's ugly right now. And even though talent-wise, I don't think they're as bad as their record, this is just another team that needs quarterback. That's it. They get a quarterback, and you watch how quickly they become more of an average football team. They're still a couple years away talent-wise, but I don't think their talent is that bad. I just think they're getting nothing out of the quarterback spot. By the way, they've played the Tennessee Titans 3 years. The last 3 years, the Browns have. And they've beaten them 2 out of 3 years. The spread's about 5 or 6, but I don't know how you don't go with the Titans with Marcus Mariota. They're 3-1 straight up and against the spread when Mariota's under center.
Yeah, and the Corey Coleman injury really hurt. It took out the one guy that you could see taking pressure off of Kaiser or whoever the heck they put back there under center. So it's an issue that goes hand in hand, that lack of talent at the skill position, and obviously the lack of consistent quarterback play. I am, though, on board, as you know, with throwing Kaiser out there. I did not hate Hugh Jackson's rationale of, hey, I just wanted to pull him back and make him watch for a week. That's more common in college than in the pros, but
sure.
I can get behind that philosophy. Now you see whether he can rein back those turnovers and those really stupid throws that got him pulled to the bench anyway in the first place.
Maybe you could remind Jim Harbaugh about that college, giving the quarterback a chance to sit back and watch. Because if I can get Brandon
with O'Corn and Spade,
dude,
got nobody else.
Yeah, no, that's the thing is they've got two big time prospects sitting there, Peters and McCaffrey. They love McCaffrey, which is Christian's little brother. They love him.
Yeah.
And what on earth are you doing wasting 4- and 5-star quarterbacks, Peters and McCaffrey, on the bench when you know O'Corn? I mean, Penn State's going to kick their butt. And I'm a Michigan fan, and I know it. They're going to destroy them on Saturday night because O'Corn stinks. So, I mean, why he can't just go, okay, I tell you what, take a seat for half or a game, and let's see what Peters or McCaffrey can give us. And I can understand not wanting to burn the red shirt off McCaffrey, but let Peters play. Just give him a game, give him a half. He won't do it. He won't do it. And that's why they're going to get demolished on Saturday night.
Game of the week, I'm doing my top 12. I still had Michigan and Penn State eke out the number one spot over SC and Notre Dame, despite the fact that there's a chance Michigan is not competitive as you speak.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm really interested in that USC Notre Dame game because of the fact that, does the win last week for USC kickstart their season and they got on a run like last year, or are they just going to be like, because if they're like this week, the way they've been all year, I think Notre Dame beats them. USC's better.
I mean, look, you got a tremendously talented roster that, unless you follow the college game, you don't know that half of it has been plagued by injuries and either won't play in this game or will play banged up, and that's a key issue.
Yeah, and coaching don't help. All right, so what else is going on for you? NFL Essentials out tomorrow, I guess, and then the Thursday night report already out?
Yeah, the Thursday night preview is out, Kansas City and Oakland, obviously, and then, you'll get your NFL Essentials probably Saturday morning or Friday night after the injury reports are out. College football previews are up there. The NBA season preview with me talking props and win totals and all that is out there. College basketball is around the corner. I got my blue ribbon is being shipped email today, so all kinds of things. And then an NLCS that continues.
Yeah, all right. Sounds good. Tony, appreciate it. We will talk to you for Week 8. Next couple of weeks, we'll have a special mid-season report card. We'll have to do something like that. So thanks for checking in with us again. We'll talk to you next week.
Everybody gets a D. Talk to you later.
Thanks, Tony. All right, so there you go. Week 7 in the books. Don't forget, we have our college football preview show tomorrow. College football preview at 3 tomorrow. We'll go over the top games and maybe some more upsets that we can call, like the Arizona State one. So we'll go over that. We'll give you all the injury updates and everything tomorrow on our college football show tomorrow at 3 Eastern. Don't forget to check back at 4 o'clock if you're listening live on the Prime Sports Radio Network when we have an interview with Demario Richard, running back from Arizona State. Or, of course, you can just check out the on-demand version over at Ourlads.com on the Ourlads Football Radio Network. We'll see you again for you NFL fans when we preview Week 8 next Thursday and every Thursday here on the Prime Sports Radio Network. Ourlads Football with Tony Mejia. We'll see you next time.